Okay, so today is our last day of sports reporting. A couple of things I want to cover real quickly with you. Some of you have not completed some of the assignments, whether they be discussion boards or blogs or things like that. I'm not caught up with my grading. Some of you haven't completed those assignments though. Here's the deal. I'm not going to hold you to a standard that I haven't held to. I have been slow in getting grades done and getting comments back to you. I'm not going to hold you to a deadline, therefore, if I haven't kept a deadline. So, you have until July 3rd. I don't have to turn grades in until the summer session is completely over. You have until July 3rd to get those missing assignments turned in. Anything you haven't done, a discussion board post, a blog post, a sport focus, I'll go back and re-enter those. You have until July 3rd to get those done and get them turned in, okay? You have until July 6th on the rewrites. So you can rewrite your event story, your advance, your feature, the sports broadcasting one. Is there another writing one we did? Can't remember. The TV script, that's the one I'm talking about. And the TV script. You can do rewrites on those off the comments that I gave you and get those submitted. Those need to be to me by July 6th, okay? I want to try and get them, if you can, get me your rewrites earlier than that, and I will make further comment. And if you're still not quite there yet, you can do another rewrite. My goal is for you to get as many repetitions and as much practice at this as you can till you get comfortable with it, till you get it right, okay? You're never going to write a story and immediately goes in the paper or immediately goes on air. Somebody is meant to edit it first. So, Matthew.
Are you going to reopen grade ones too? Or no? Grade ones, already grade ones, grade one?
What grade ones?
Everyone grade ones?
The only things graded like they're on the grade book. Well, like your stories that are graded, that are posted in the grade book, I'll re-enter a grade for those. Once you,
All right.
yeah. Okay. So, July 3rd, any assignment you haven't done that hasn't met the deadline, get those done. By July 6th, rewrites of event story, advanced feature, and broadcast news. And you can get rewrites to those things. I am going to get caught up on grading by Wednesday, okay? I will have that to you so then you can start working on the rewrites, okay? Because anything that's due this coming weekend won't be anything you rewrite anyway. It's your highlights and your flip card assignment. Those aren't really rewritable, okay? Those will be, quite frankly, graded very easily because that is something very, very different than you've ever done before. I just want to see that you make a stab at it. That's almost a pass-fail sort of grade on those two. Okay? All right. Moving on. Had another great visit with Time Warner Cable Sports the other day. A couple of you were in here. Those of you on TV land and didn't get to hear this. I've been fired up since doing that the other day with Allison's face. Whenever we walked into the control room, she just lit up and said, "This is what I want to do." I feel like doing these tours has been the smartest thing I've done as a professor. We went to 610. Nick was all fired up because he wants to get into radio and doing that sort of thing. We went to Arrowhead, and Allie posted a picture on Facebook of her like this in front of Arrowhead saying, "What's your 3 to 5 year plan?" Allison's face whenever she went to the TV station. Seeing you guys get so excited about the potential and the possibilities of where you can be really gets me fired up and makes me want to do more with what we're doing with our program, because there are unbelievable amounts of opportunities for you now. They have changed the face of sport communication from the days of just a sports page in the newspaper or the sportscast on the evening news or the network that did the game. Okay? Radio stations are now streaming games. Radio stations are now doing blogs, and you have talk radio. You have television stations 24/7 in Kansas City that's doing sports talk shows, that's doing highlight shows, that's doing sports news. It's an ESPN local that are doing live productions. Stadiums have their own in-house production crews. Universities have their own video coordinators. They have sports information directors who write. So there's so many opportunities for you. If you're passionate about this, you're willing to come in, willing to put in the time, willing to work, you have a ton of opportunities, and I want to make sure that you are trained and you're ready to go, that you have a chance to get there, okay? Part of what you were talking about this week in the discussion board was the future of sport communication. What jumped out at you guys on that one? I saw several of you were talking about, you know, the many opportunities you have and the different skill sets you're gonna need to have. Well, what else stood out to you from the article that you read?
I think it's cool that universities are having like classes for students to like code and make to make applications and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you can make your own app and how to announce whatever's happening and scheduling things.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that whole saying they've got an app for everything. My son plays Chippy League baseball. He's 10. And I have an app on my phone where they're keeping a scorebook on an iPad during the game and it's updating stats. And now I can check out my son's stats for the season. Now, he's leading the team in stolen bases right now, but they get a stolen base and the ball goes zipping over the catcher's head too. So, what else stood out?
It was kind of interesting. One of the things that they talked about specifically in the article was the like the advanced metrics that they use, specifically in baseball, but all of pretty much all the sports are doing it. And I think it's kind of interesting that as new mediums are emerging, essentially the information is also evolving. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more stuff that you have to keep track of, but that kind of opens the door to be better at keeping track of certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because everybody's talking about something, so everybody has to find a kind of a different angle to remain relevant. So there's, well, it's, I don't know, not quite overwhelming, but there's an abundance of information. There's kind of creates opportunities to find a niche.
Yeah. What's your strong suit?
What's interesting to you? What can you see in all of this that nobody else can see?
Right.
You know, things like that. So
Yeah. Especially as you become a commentator or an analyst.
Yeah.
That you know these things. Okay. I'm having a little nervous moment here because I can't remember if I hit record or not, so I'm going to walk back here and check this as we're talking. One of the things that you need to think about is sports fans, because there are so many different channels and different avenues to gather your news, sports fans have become much more sophisticated. They want more information, hence the advance of cybermetrics and all sabermetrics. I never say that word right. How they want to know what is your WAR and what is your range score and things like that in baseball. We're going to talk about golf and bowling today, and it used to be that in golf, what was his average? What was his stroke average? You know, and that was pretty much it. Well, now we want to know, okay, well, how many times does he hit the green in regulation, and what's his fairway score, and what's his scramble score, and all these types of things that we're looking at to see how talented the player is. Okay, so getting to know those things, and if you become more skilled in the records and the rules and the sabermetrics and all of that as a sport reporter, that you can provide more of that information is going to make you that much more employable. Okay. The other thing that's going to make you that much more employable, and this is what we try and do in our program, is to build your skill set. If you want to be a broadcaster, you want to be on-air talent, that's great. But if you can take pictures and you can stand on the other side of that camera and you can, you know social media really well, and you can edit and you can write, the more skills you have, the more tools you have in your tool bag, the more opportunity you're going to have for employment, okay? There's a trend called backpack journalism. And what it means is Friday night, I'm going to the high school football game, okay? So I'm going to go out on Friday night, I'm going to get to the football game, I'm taking my backpack because I used to be able to go in there with just my little reporter's notepad that I could, it's like that wide, that tall, I could slip it in my back pocket, have my pen, good to go, okay? Those days have changed. One of the things, I talked to a couple of students, or a couple of our former graduates, and said, what should I be adding to my sport reporting class that might help? And they said, teach them some sports photography. Well, we don't have time in this class to add in sports photography, unfortunately. We have a photojournalism class, digital news production, that you could go in there and you can learn some sports photography. If you really want to get into it, take an elementary photography class and build that skill set, but it's an important one for you to have, okay? But I'm going to get to the game. I'm going to lay my stuff out. Of course, I've got my phone, because I'm gonna be wanting to tweet throughout the game what the scores are and everything. And then, as I get set up, I'm gonna go up to the press box, I'm gonna take my iPad out, set this thing up, I got a keyboard to it so I can type faster, and I'm gonna be able to keep my notes right here, right? And because of Wi-Fi, then I'm gonna be able to email all my stuff back to the paper or the station or whatever whenever I get done with the game. I've got my notepad here. Remember how I'm gonna keep stats myself? So I've got this set up so I can keep my stats. I've also got some extra paper in there. I can write notes to myself during the game. Second half, I decide, all right, I've kind of got an idea of what I want to be doing here. I'm going to need to get some photographs. I'm going to need to get some highlights. This is a tense game and it's an exciting game. So I'm going to take my camera down on the sideline and I'm going to start shooting some pictures because I may decide that I want to do a photo slideshow. I may just want a really good photo to go on the site. I may want to get some pictures in here that I can transfer then onto my iPad because I've got a fire reader that I can go take the SD card out, put it on there, and I can, with Twitter, you get 84% more retweets, and on Facebook I think it's 88% more likes if you have a photo with your post. That's good information to have because I want people coming to my site. I want people reading my stuff. So I want to make sure I have some good images to go with it, okay? So I'm going to get some photos. My DSLR here, I can also shoot some video. So I'm going to shoot some video and try and get some cool plays and things like that. And after the game, I can edit, because I can drop that into my iPad, and since I have iMovie on here, I can edit my own highlight package. Of course, you know, if I'm going to do that, I want to make sure that I interview the coach. Well, I don't want to interview the coach standing here like this, because your camera, I don't know if you knew this or not, it can sense your heartbeat, you can sense the pulse, and in your hand, I may be holding it perfectly steady, but the pulse coming through my hand will still jar my camera a little bit. Okay, did you know that? Now you do. So I'm going to set up my tripod so I can have a steady shot, so I can interview the coach. So I'm going to have a brief coach's interview. I'm going to have a brief highlight package. I'm going to have my printed story. I'm going to be tweeting throughout the game, getting all that information out there. I may do Instagram. I don't do Instagram. My daughter keeps trying to get me on it. No. I've got my notes that I took, so I have some stats to put together after the game. Okay? But I've pulled all of those parts together. The video, the audio, the writing, the social media. I have become a completely converged journalist, and I have told the story of this game all by myself. Very, very exciting time to be in this profession because of the multitude of things you can do. Very stressful time because of the multiple things that you can do or will be expected to do, all right? Now, what I told you would probably be more if I was reporting as a newspaper reporter. Same concept works if you're doing it for a television station. You're still going to want to be able to keep your notes. You're still going to be able to want to write your story from where you are. You're probably not going to take a camera like this. You're probably going to take a camera like that. Okay, more of a ENG, and get really good video. Okay, but that's the future. That's where you're going. So in all of your classes, make sure, I'm not going to do anything with audio. You might. You might find out, yes you are. Jessie Gerhardt is one of our graduates who was all about writing, all about video, wasn't going to do anything with audio. She's been employed by the Missouri Mavericks for the past 4 years and is their audio tech at their games. She runs all of their sound. Does all of the, you know, when you go to games and you hear the sound effects, the charge, the music played, all those types of things, that's her job. That's what she does. And because she was so good at that, they've given her more and more responsibility. Okay? All right. Moving on, we're going to talk a little golf. Golf is a, how many of you are golfers? How many of you like to play golf? You've played it before? I like to play. I'm horrible. I don't even take woods because my woods, I can like make a perfect right angle with a driver. You know, that's not a good thing. You don't want that unless you've got a dog right angle. I've even tried to straighten it out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going this way, so I'm going to aim over here because it'll go like this. No, that one I hit straight. Golf is a very unique sport because it's called the gentleman's game. because so much of what we do in golf is dependent on old rules, on etiquette, on patience, which is one of the reasons I struggle with golf. But this is a good example of what you could be facing in golf. This is from the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance with Will Smith and Matt Damon. Could you see that?
The new. Not the golf program, you say.
No! No! Don't do it! Please don't do it! Only you and me seen it. And I won't tell a soul. Cross my heart. Ain't nobody gonna know.
And so we.
You got to tell them not to do it, Bagger. It's just a stupid rule that don't mean nothing.
That's a choice for Mr. Juniper.
No one wanted the penalty assessed, not even Jones and Hayden. This was no way to win a match.
Maybe you're mistaken, Junior. Maybe it moved before you touched your penalty.
Might not have moved at all. The light plays funny tricks this time of day.
The ball is deemed to have moved if it leaves its original position in the least degree, but not if it merely oscillates and comes to rest in its original position. Is she different? Can you be certain? Sometimes the ball will shudder and then settle back again, Junior. The ball was here, and it rolled here.
Hit quick will work for you, time to think about it.
That is a scene where he is playing in a turn. Have you ever seen this movie? It's a great movie if you ever get a chance to watch it. It is a scene where he is playing these two legendary golfers, and they're playing in a tournament. They're trying to, it's right during the Depression. It's in Savannah, Georgia, trying to save this golf course. The woman you see there, Charlize Theron, her father had built the golf course, and then the Depression hit, and they lost all their money. Juno was a World War II hero who lost his whole platoon, and he went to drinking and got away from the game and everything, trying to make a comeback, playing against these two legendary golfers. And they're at the end of the tournament where he has rallied and he's trying to win the tournament. He's set up, has fought through all of his demons, and he's got the ball sitting there and he's ready to take a shot. Well, he's trying to get a little leaf from behind the ball because you want those impediments out of the way. And he moves the leaf and the ball rolls back. He knows what happened. He wasn't trying to cheat. He didn't do really anything wrong, but because the ball moved, he's got to call a penalty on himself. He could, doesn't have to. Like the little guy said, nobody else saw it. There's the two of them, and the little guy wasn't going to say anything to anybody. What other sport do we have where you call penalties on yourself? You ever seen a basketball player go, oh, stop, I fouled?
No, they usually been playing stop me.
Huh?
It's the opposite.
Yeah, the offensive lineman goes, oh, dang it, ref, I held it. Gosh, sorry guys, bring back that 90-yard touchdown pass, my fault. Does that ever happen in any other sport? That's what makes golf so unique, is there are so many screwy rules, so many things that you have to think about that you as a sport reporter, you need to have an idea of what some of these rules are so you know if they get called, why they got called. If you swing and miss, you know, you'll see golfers, they'll stand over here by their ball and they'll take a couple swings and they'll get themselves loose. It's a nice swing, isn't it? Throw a ball out there and it's ugly. and they'll go up and they'll get over the ball, and they'll dress the ball, and they'll get themselves set, and they're looking down the fairway, and they'll swing, come back, and they'll swing, and they'll pop up, and they'll miss the ball completely. It's a stroke. Didn't even touch the ball, but it's a stroke because they meant to swing at it, and they missed it. If they move to debris, if you have too many clubs in your bag, they don't want to see you with more clubs than you're allowed to have, because then you've got an advantage over somebody else, all right? Those are little things. If you have this greatest round of your life and you're so fired up after the match, and you go and you turn in your card, and then you go find your family, and you celebrate, and you're all pumped up, and you didn't sign your card, you're disqualified. Little rules like that. Golf is made up of all kinds of things, and you need to keep those things in mind, so keep your playbook or your rule book with you, okay? You're allowed to have 8 to 10 irons that are numbered 1 through 9. The smaller the number, the farther you can drive it. The higher the number, the more loft it has. So it's a 9 iron is not going to travel as far as a 1 iron, but a 1 iron is going to just go low and far. A 9 iron is going to give you short distance, but it's got a good arc to it, so if you want to get over something. You're allowed to have a total of 14 clubs in your bag in the tournament. Okay? There is an inbounds and an out of bounds. They want you staying within that inbounds territory. If you go out of bounds, they say it's in and 1, out and 2. So if I take my drive and I go out of bounds, that's stroke number 1. I gotta go pick up that ball, drop it back inbounds, that's stroke number 2. Now I'm lying 3. So my next shot, I've only hit the ball twice, but my second stroke counts as my 3rd stroke, because I had to bring that ball back inbounds, okay? You're gonna have courses that vary in length, that vary in width, and that have a certain number of hazards. Some courses are said to be very narrow, meaning they've got a lot of trees lining them. It's a very narrow fairway. Others are very wide open with not a lot of trees. Okay, those would probably be a little bit longer, so the course is going to be farther from the tee box to the green. You're going to have hazards like water hazards. You're going to have hazards like sand traps. Sand traps generally are going to be around the green, but sometimes they can be out in the middle of the fairway, and players have to play through those. They're things that add challenge to the game. There are new sports coming on all the time to look at player strengths and weaknesses. Their scoring average is, your average over a round of golf. A round of golf is 18 holes. Many courses are just 9 holes, so you play the 9, and then you come back the second time, you play the 9 again, okay? The second 9, you may have to tee off from a different spot, but just to make the course a little bit different. But many are also 18 holes. A round of golf is 18, and your scoring average is your average score for the round, not per hole, because you're going to have par 3, par 4, and par 5 holes, okay? Your driving accuracy, how accurate you are into the fairway versus into the rough, because you'll have a nice fairway, which is usually beautiful Bermuda grass. It's nice and smooth, nice and level, and then a rough to the side, which is taller grass, and then woods. Driving distance, your greens in regulation, which means if I have a par 4, I'm on the green after my second stroke, because you're trying for a 2-putt. If you have to 3-putt, you had a long putt or you didn't get on in regulation, okay? So you want to be able to 2-putt. So par 3, you're going to get in on how many strokes? You're going to get on the green in how many strokes? 1. Par 5, 3, okay? Putts per round, how many putts did it take? If I make all my greens in regulation, then a round is 18 holes, then how many putts should I have? 36. Because I want to be able to 2-putt. At most 36, that's my goal, as at most have to do 36 putts. Because you're going to be kind of funny.
Oh, mine's probably like 70.
Huh?
Mine's probably like 70.
I kind of stop at 8, keep score after that. Scrambling, if you didn't get on in regulation, were you able to get up onto the green within a distance that you could 2-putt? Okay. Generally, you're going to be trying to say bogey there, which is 1 over par. In professional tournaments, golfers are competing against the fields. You compete 1-on-1. In college and in high school, you're competing 1-on-1 for an individual award, but you're also competing as part of a team. So you have team results as well. Okay? In the PGA, most of their tournaments are going to be 4 rounds, so you'll play 72 holes. It goes over 4 days. And you'll want to see how players are. You kind of look at their averages each day. Do they finish strong and they fade? Do they kind of stay in the middle of the pack and climb? Are they, how are they finishing? How are they making it? A lot of times you'll hear them say something about they didn't make the cut. You have qualifying rounds to see if they actually make it into the tournament. And if they don't play well enough to get into the tournament, you don't even get to go to the 4 rounds. Okay. There's also match play where you compete against one other golfer. So you're playing hole by hole. You get a point for every win. So if we go on to hole number 1 is a par 4, and I get a 4, and my partner gets a 5, I win, so I get a point. The next one's a par 3, we both get par, we each get a half a point. Okay. Best ball has 4-person teams. The lowest score for that team wins. Skins game is a game where each hole or skin has a money value. So each hole, we're going to put how much money we're betting on that game, and the one who gets the most skins gets the most money. My dad used to play in those all the time. I never did fully understand what he was talking about because he never won a whole lot. There are a lot of terms that you're going to have to remember in golf. And these are just some of the things I've talked about here. Okay, an ace, address, your approach shot, your caddy, what your caddy do, what's a dog leg, what's a fairway, what does it mean to scramble? We just talked about what are hazards, what's your handicap. Anybody know what your handicap is? Or what the handicap is? My handicap's the clubs in my bag. Sorry. I told y'all on day 1 the joke's don't get much better, all right? Know what your handicap is?
It's average.
It's your average score over par. So if you play a course, and there's a certain number of times you have to play, it depends on the course. Say the par for that course is 72, and you average a 75, you're a 5 handicap. Means you're 5 over par, your average is 5 over par.
93.
Hmm?
93.
You'd be 3.
No, it'd be 72. You said 72 par and 75.
Did I say 75? Okay. Yeah, I meant 77. I had 77 in my head. All right. So then as you're watching the course, again, pick your spots to watch. Why is this important in golf? There's 2 reasons.
So you can spot the ball.
So you can spot the ball, so you can see where the golfers are coming from, and you can spot the ball and see, did they hit the hit regulation? And then how do they do going to the green? Well, what's another reason in golf? You need to pick your spots very carefully. So you're safe. Because that little ball, hard to dodge. All right, and you don't want to get hit by it. Okay. Read the player profiles so you know what their strengths are. You know some of their stats coming in. If you have somebody that generally hits the greens in regulation 90% of the time, and they're having a match where they're really struggling with that, that's good to know. That may be why they're struggling. Or if they're not hitting greens in regulation but they're still winning, well, they must be having a great round of scrambling. They don't usually have to scramble because they usually hit the green in regulation. What are they doing? It helps you build your questions. Okay. Pick a group that's going to yield a good story. A couple of players that have been strong competitors, a couple of players who don't like each other very much, maybe a couple of players from rival schools, those types of things. Okay. Keep your own shorthand so you can keep track of the stats as you're going along. Again, bring that rule book with you because if there becomes a question at some point in the game, you want to know what it is. Follow the rules of etiquette. Tiger Woods is known as much for his temper on a golf course as he is for his prowess on a golf course. He would get so furious if somebody, he's addressing the ball, which means he's standing over getting ready to hit, he rears back and somebody starts taking pictures and you can hear the click of the camera. You'll see him just stop mid-swing, come on, man, and he'll start yelling at him, or he'll swing poorly and he'll throw his club, and he'll be looking around. Once a player is over the ball, ready to stroke, you don't say anything, you don't do anything. You'll see in tournaments, they'll hold their arms up and they'll hold up a sign that says quiet. You've got to be quiet. You don't move during a round. My dad used to get mad at me. There's all kinds of etiquette rules in golf. Used to get mad at me if he was trying to putt and I was standing on the other side of the hole and the sun was behind me and there was a shadow across the hole. He'd go, can you move your shadows over the hole? I'm thinking, so what? Well, you don't want to know why that's an issue. Number one, if I happen to move in any way, shape, or form, it can be distracting. But golf courses, the greens are cut so short that when you put a shadow over it, it cools the grass enough, the grass will change. And you think, really, is that going to make that big of a difference? Let me tell you something. Golfers are as anal as baseball players are superstitious. You don't jack around with this stuff with their etiquette, okay? You keep the game moving, you follow the etiquette, okay? Don't get involved with fans. In a golf tournament, the fans are right there, and you're going to be right in the middle of them because what they call the gallery is kind of a bleacher area down by the green, but people can line the course and be watching during the match. Well, if you're right there in the midst of them and they're asking you questions because you've been able to move around more than they have, perhaps, if you're talking to them about what some other golfer did, you're going to miss what's happening right here, what you're trying to cover. Okay. Don't panic if you can't get everything though. You're not going to be able to be everywhere. If something great happens on a hole you just left, something great just happened on a hole you just left. And you're going to have to just accept it and hope maybe somebody got notes and you can pick up on it. Okay? Player reactions, body language. Golfers really try and keep a steady demeanor because golf is not a sport. One of the things I struggle with in golf is if any sport I play, if I'm struggling, I try and pick up my intensity and try and go a little bit harder. You can't do that in golf. If you're struggling in golf and you try and hit the ball really hard, you're going to get a little chili dipper rolling down the fairway. You have to maintain your composure. And so if you see golfers losing their composure, getting frustrated, you know they're probably going to struggle. Okay. Putting and driving are the two things we talk about. The big saying is you drive for show, you putt for dough. People want to see long drives. That looks really cool. But if you can drive it long and can't get onto the fairway, you can't chip on, you can't putt, that long 350-yard drive, whoop-de-doo, you still got a bogey because you couldn't putt. Okay, so you putt for dough. You got to drop those. You want to wait till the player is finished with the round before you try and interview them. Don't try and talk to them during the game because they're going to get frustrated. They're going to get hateful. All right. And recognize they have to verify the cards afterwards and do the addition and everything, make sure everything adds up right. They have to sign it, so you're not going to get them right away. It's going to take a little bit afterward. Okay. They generally have a news conference for their top players in conference tournaments, in national tournaments, and professional tournaments. So you're going to be able to get a lot of information there. They will make an opening statement, which in pretty much any news conference, whatever the sport is, they're going to give you an opening statement. So make sure you get that information. Probably after a news conference, you're not going to have much of a chance to interview them one-on-one, but you might. So go ahead and get a chance, or give it a try. So. Okay. As you're writing it, always remember the lead isn't necessarily on the winner. I mean, of course, you're going to want to tell who won it pretty early, but if you had a player that made a nice rally that came back, that's a good story to tell. Father's Day was yesterday. If you have somebody who was playing in honor of their father, or somebody who just lost their father and was playing through it, that's a good story. So keep that in mind. You're looking for the most interesting story or stories in the tournament, not necessarily just who won it. Okay. As always, we always talk about noting the weather. That's one of the things that we forget a lot in sports. Is talk about the weather. What's it like out there? What are they having to endure? Because you play the game in the elements. So make sure you're focusing on that as well. Again, find a shot that's going to define how that round went. A player who scrambled really well, or a player who made a long putt to save par, or even save bogey that kept him in it and gave him a chance to win at the end. In college, team results are usually the most important because then the team can advance. But sometimes it is a player who just had a record-breaking tournament, so you think about that. But usually it's going to be the team, so make sure you focus on those. You do need to go ahead and include the total yardage and the par somewhere in your story. How long was this course? Golfers are going to know the significance of that. Okay, those are the ones who are going to be reading that story or listening to that story anyway. And finally, some of the rules: use numbers for club sizes, for par listings, for handicaps, for match play scores. Then use your AP style to look at the use of other numbers, okay? This is one of those things, guys, that you are gonna have to get down, is your AP style for numbers, all right? In broadcast, again, we told you, if you're reading off that teleprompter, we're spelling out numbers for the most part. Anything over 11, we're spelling, or under 11, we're spelling out, okay? But if you're doing it for print, or if you're doing it for the website, think about using those numbers, okay? The other sport we're talking about this week is bowling. How many of you like to bowl? If I could get my bowling score and my golf score reversed, because you want a low bowling or a golf score, you want a high bowling score, and I'm just the exact opposite. I'm great when they got those rails. When I take the kids and I hit the bumpers and I can use the bank shot, I'm an awesome bowler when we do that. How many of you know Darren Plummer, our department engineer? He's a great bowler. He's on the bowling team. He's really, really good. We have a women's team here that has been to the national tournament every year. I think they won the first college national bowling tournament before it was NCAA sport. It's going to be an MIAA sport next year. There's enough schools that are now bowling that women's bowling next year will be a conference school. Warrensburg High School has added bowling. Bowling is starting to grow as a high school and college sport. And in the beer and pizza leagues, that we're most familiar with. So it has some challenges because of the different scoring styles, and I'm not going to get into all of those. But as with other things, keep in mind the equipment has evolved, the style has changed, so scores have changed because of that. You know that the pins are lined in a triangle in 4 rows. Okay, the object of the game is what? Knock all the pins down, because then you don't have to worry about picking up a spare the next time around, especially if you have a 7-10 split where you've got the back 2 in the corner, where you're trying to knock both of those down. You got to hit the outside of one and shoot it across to get the other. Anybody ever hit a 7-10 split? You've created a bunch of them? Yeah. And every time, right down the middle. The one, the first one when I wanted to roll right down the middle, didn't. And now I got 7-10 split. I'm trying to go one side or the other. Yeah, right down the middle. That's correct. Okay. Perfect score is 300. You get 12 strikes in a row. Every single frame you get a 300, so you get a perfect score. A game consists of 10 frames, and you can bowl a second time in frames where pins remain. NCAA play includes qualifying rounds and Baker rounds. And the Baker rounds, not everybody rolls every frame. You've got different positions. And Ron Holmes explained this to me when he's our bowling coach here, when I was the sports information director. He explained to me the format and the different positions. You have a leadoff bowler, you have a closer, you have an anchor. A lot of it sounds like baseball terminology. And you have a lefty specialist you can bring in, depending on how the lane is playing, because they oil the lanes. Anybody ever stepped over the line onto the oil?
Yeah.
That hurts. I've done that, and whoop, not fun. Okay, so you're going to have specialists that'll play in different areas. All right. Tournament events you're going to have 2 rounds, and then you're going to go into bracket play. So you're going to get seeded into those brackets. Pro Bowler Association consists of 4 major events, including the Masters, the U.S. Open, the World Championships, and the Tournament of Champions. ESPN's picking up a lot more of this, a lot more bowling, so you'll see a lot more of that. You are going to have a very different language for bowling from any other sport, so you're going to have to learn what it is. Okay. I've always thought the bowlers that wear the brace on their wrist, it's kind of cheating. Why are you wearing this brace that keeps your wrist from breaking? Come to find out, a lot of bowlers who don't wear those injure their wrist because it's a heavy ball, and you're trying to, a lot of times you'll come down the side and you're trying to turn your wrist and get it to spin. You can do some serious damage to your wrist. So that's like any other sport. You're going to have to protect the gear. Okay. You want to arrive early so you know where, mainly because you need to know where they're going to post the scores, where they're going to be putting the results, because that's what you're going to have to go to find out how the game went. Okay. You do want to go ahead and call the lane ahead of time to verify the times. Bowling is still emerging. And so you don't see scheduled posters and websites with all of the detailed information. So sometimes you still need to call the lanes and verify those things. If it's college, go ahead and contact the sports information office to get pronunciations and make sure on scores and rosters. You do want to focus on the leaders, on if people were picking up really difficult frames, if they got a series of strikes in a row, if somebody was not playing very well, had a lot of open frames, meaning they had pins left standing even after their 2 bowls, and see if they rallied from that. If you had some dramatic frames where somebody, if you don't get a strike here, you're out of contention, boom, strike. So they're able to rally, okay? Go ahead and look around, move back and forth through the alley, through the lanes, and find those good matchups. See who's performing really well. You're always, when you're talking to athletes, you're always wanting to remember you have a job to do. They may have had a bad day. You have to learn how to phrase your questions delicately, because if you come across as accusatory or contentious, then you're going to put them on the defensive. You're not going to get as great responses. But neither do you want to pander to. Neither do you want to come to them and say, rough day for you today, I'm really sorry. I know you're a great bowler. I know usually this isn't the kind of thing that happens to you, but can you tell me a little bit about what was just not working today? Don't pander to them. They're professionals, or they're college athletes who've been through this before. Ask a question, okay? They will appreciate coverage. That's one of the things I found whenever I worked in athletics for the sports that didn't get a lot of attention. They love it when you show up. When you're there to provide some coverage, they are very appreciative. They may not be as experienced because they don't get as much coverage, and you may have to kind of guide them along, but as long as you're professional about it, they're going to be very happy to have you there. Go ahead and ask them about the conditions of the lane. Was it especially slick? Was it kind of rough? Those types of things can happen. Okay. Note leaders who fell in later rounds. Those teams that were playing really well, or those bowlers who were playing really well and they faltered later on. Find something unusual. I shouldn't say spares, not spared. So record your strikes and spares, but also look at the open frames. Again, those frames where they left pins standing. Did they have a series of those that put them out of contention? They may have been doing great and then went through a struggle there in the middle, and they had to rally late and they just couldn't come back. Okay, so keep track of those keep track of those things. Watch for perfect games, because those are very rare, very, very exciting. See if somebody can hold the pressure as they get later in the game. You know, you think about in baseball or softball, later in the innings, nobody's talking to that pitcher because they don't want to get into the zone. Are people talking to the bowler that's going for the perfect game? Are they holding up against the pressure of maintaining that perfect game? Some things with scoring in bowling, that slash, that's a strike. You get 10 points plus the total from the next 2 throws. So if a bowler gets 9 on the next 2 frames, he gets 19 for the initial strike, plus the points he got for the other one, or the other 2 frames, okay? An X denotes a spare, so that's 10 points plus the score from the next bowl. So,
That's backwards, yeah. X is a strike.
You get 3 of them, you get 30.
Yeah.
I got your book.
Mine's out of commission.
Your book's out of commission.
Yeah, apparently if you leave it
Did I
in
read
your
that
car
one?
with the windows down and it's raining.
That's not good. I've got one up for you, Michael. You get 3 bowls are awarded. 3 bowls are awarded a third throw in the 10th frame. See what happens when you don't edit your own work? 3 bowls are awarded a third throw in the 10th frame if they get a mark on the first 2 throws. You get a third throw on your 10th frame, the final frame, if you get diamond backwards. I'm sorry. The slash is for a spare, the X is for a strike. My bad. Okay. In that 10th frame though, if you get a strike, or you get 2 strikes, or you get a spare, you get a third goal on that 10th frame, okay? And then if you have an open frame, make sure you note which pins they left standing. So they end up with an open frame and you see afterward they had like 3 7-10 splits and they didn't pick up any of them. That's something to note. If they left the front pin several times, that's something to note. So you want to keep track of all that, okay? I usually say questions at this point, but clearly I screwed that one up, so don't ask me any questions because I don't know.
What about beer frame?
The beer frame? Yeah, that's not in college ball. All right. Again, your sport focus for those will be due Sunday at midnight, just as always, okay? All right. We're going to talk a little bit now. We're going to shift gears. The last thing we're talking about as far as sport reporting is going to be for those of you who want to be a play-by-play or color analyst. That's what goes with your assignment for this week. Media notes are a great place for you to get information as you prep for a game. The worst time to be prepping for a game is when? Right before the game. If you show up at the game, you haven't taken any notes, maybe you printed off your game notes and you brought them with you, good on you that you brought your game notes. You haven't prepped for it. You haven't read. You don't know anything. Professionals who do this for a living, if they have a game on Saturday, start prepping on Sunday. They start putting their flip card together. They start going through newspaper clippings. They start looking at the stats from the previous game. They start putting that together. Then on Monday, they're highlighting. They're getting more notes. They're looking at updated statistics. They're looking for players of the week, those types of things, and they're putting more information to their notes and their flip cards. Wednesday, they're going through pronunciations. They're trying to make sure they have everybody's names right. In the process of all this, they're memorizing names and numbers because we never want to say, number 10, Michael Frazier back to pass, because if it's on radio, they can't see a number anyway. Why am I telling a number? A number doesn't matter. If it's on television, they can see the number. Who cares what the number is? They want to know who the player is. If you have to give a number, it's because you haven't prepped enough and you don't have it memorized and you're buying time. Number 10, Michael Frazier, what you've just done is try and buy yourself some time to your audience so you can look through, okay? So you have to prep, you have to do the research, you have to do the homework. Media notes are put out by who?
The teams.
By the teams. Who on their teams? PR. Sports information directors, public relations directors. I spent a good chunk of my time every week doing media notes for the different sporting events because you do them for every game you have. Every football game, every volleyball game, every basketball game. I do a basketball game on a Wednesday night, and as soon as the game was over and I got everything out, I was putting stuff in for the basketball game Saturday. Okay? Because I have to get this to my media so they can prep. All those stats you hear, how a left-handed batter does on the road at night against right-handed pitchers, that is the kind of stats you can get from the PR office. That's the kind of things that you should be able to find in media notes, okay? The information you provide is, if you're just writing a story, if you're doing it in advance, this is the kind of information you want to be able to include in your advance. Some of the things that you're going to see in the media notes. Records, rivalries, what happened the last time these two teams met, those types of things. If you've got athletes who are going for special honors or things, you want to include that, okay? They provide what we call the nuggets. What you should include, and part of this is, some of you may decide you want to go be a sports information director someday. Give a schedule and the results for both teams so I can see how they've done against the teams in the past and who they're getting ready to play, so I can see that coming up. The standings, both in the conference and in our case in the region. If there's national standings, what those are. In Division II, regional standings have nothing to do with national standings. Regional standings are the ones we really care about. National standings look great. They're bragging points. They do nothing for us. Regional standings determine if we get to go to postseason. And they don't look at the regional standings and determine what the national standings are. They are two totally separate groups in most cases, okay? The team statistics, the coaching information, their bio, their record against this opponent, information about the opponent, the series history. So if you want to say what the all-time scores are for these two teams, who leads the series history, those types of things. Recaps of their previous games for both teams. You can do who both teams played last Saturday and their recap from their game last year. Starting lineups and depth charts you're typically going to be able to see as well. So we're going to see who's starting and who's the backup. Okay. I'm not getting into all this. You can read through all of this sort of thing. But you may include, if there's weekly award winners, you might put in there if there's like a list of, if you've got somebody climbing a top 10 list in school history, where they rank. Any types of nuggets you can think of that can help the media do their job. They can help provide more information. That's what you want to include. And therefore, as media, you want to make sure you're digging through it to find that information. And if there's something you think might be interesting that's not in the notes, call them. Ask them about it. And finally, that's what you're going to be getting from the teams. These are some other places you can go for information as you're preparing for the game. There's school and team websites. Of course, that's where you're going to get a lot of your notes. Local newspapers and radio stations. How have they covered that team? What have they said about the team in the past? Maybe the coach gave a great quote there that you didn't get. You can include that. You just have to cite where you got it. Okay. School Sports Information Office, maxpreps.com. Those of you who are working with the Midwest Missouri Gridiron Report doing the special project this fall, you'll get very familiar with this site because they cover all the high schools in the nation. Okay. And they include a lot of this information. NCAA.org, I will tell you, this is the crappiest website I have ever had to work on. It has stuff hidden in every nook and cranny, and it is so hard to navigate. I can't stand the NCAA site, but you need to get familiar with it, as familiar as you can. Conference websites, the MIAA site's actually pretty good. The guy who maintains it doesn't do a great job keeping it updated. He's usually later than people would like to see it, but it's easy to navigate. National affiliations like these, this is where you're going to get a lot of the polls. We're going to see a lot of stories about, you can maybe go there and find out if they do regular features on different teams, maybe they did a feature on a team, something like that. But get to know these sites and how to navigate them, because that's going to help you move along very quickly as you're getting your information. Okay? Questions? Guys, I'm telling you, the number one job you have as a sports reporter, the most important thing that you can do is not show up at the game and write a good story or get good video. It's prepare. It's do the homework to get in there, because that's going to tell you who you want to be filming. It's going to tell you what style of play that team plays. If I've got a team that passes the ball a lot and I'm a camera operator, I know that I'm going to have to focus on the quarterback and I'm going to have to be on the move to find receivers. If it's a team that runs the ball a lot, but they do a lot of misdirection. We played a team when I was in college, it was Missouri Rolla at the time, now Missouri S&T. Their quarterback, they would run, I don't even remember what they called the offense. They had like a wing and then 3 backs in the backfield. Their quarterback would take the snap and just turn around here and go like this. And the backs would just scurry. And he knew who he was handing the ball off to. Nobody else did. You know, as a camera operator, I'm going to have to wait till somebody breaks through before I start following, or I'm going to get lost. But you have to do the homework, okay? If you want to be on-air talent, you have to learn to keep notes. This is what I would call a flip card for a football game. This was when I broadcast. I was the color commentator when the Mules played Pittsburgh State. You use a manila folder like this because now I can look at it. Pittsburgh State has the football. I've got Pitt State on the offense up here. I've got UCM on defense down here. So in one glance, I can see who has the ball, who made the tackle, all right? And I've got notes written in here. So Jamal Tyler was a running back for Pittsburgh State. He was their leading rusher with 228 yards and a 5.7 average. I have that written in. Marquise Cushion was their leading receiver. He had 852 yards receiving. He averaged 18.9 yards per catch, had 5 touchdowns. Gavin Lukeman was the receiver on the other side. He's 6'4", 201-pound senior. Big, tall guy, big and lanky. He led them with 46 receptions and 10 touchdown receptions. Their offense averaged 144.9 rushing yards, had at least 6 games where they went over 100 yards. They threw for 301 yards with 2 games with at least 800 yards of total offense. They averaged 33.7 points per game. Decent sized offensive line, 6'4", average 6'4", 286 pounds. Gives me talking points during the game, okay? One of their offensive linemen, right guard Tyler Smith, he was a 3rd-team All-MIAA selection last year. So if he makes a big block, I can come to that. But I've got notes here that I can look at. I've done my research, and I've got this card put together, and I've gone through and I've studied their names. I've got Anthony Abenoa was their quarterback. It's spelled Abenjoa. How many of you would have gotten Abenoa out of that? I had to find out, get the pronunciation before the game and read that, because if I say Abenjoa during the game, I sound like an idiot. Okay? You have to do the research. Have something prepared. I also had game notes that I took with me. I had some notes that I'd written out, talking about where we ranked in the MIAA, because you can't get everything on that flip card, it gets too thick. But I have notes that I've printed out. I have a script of a calendar that I took with me, and I put some notes on that. I had a news release about, we announced our 2014-2015 Hall of Fame induction class, so if I got some dead time, I wanted to say something in there. But I took those types of things with me, okay? Baseball and softball, remember I said you're going to keep a scorebook. You'll have a scorebook with you, so that's where you're going to be able to keep your stats during the game. They give you this. You really don't know until you get to a baseball or softball game. You kind of have an idea of who's going to be starting, but they can switch them like that, and it's awfully hard to make those changes. And a lot of that, again, you're going to be doing your scorecard. So what I would do is just take their roster and I'd print it out. And I would underline it, I'd put pronunciations by their names, I would put their stats for the year next to their names, so I could be flipping through here and check that out as the game's going along. Wrote in the team's batting average and the opponent's batting average on the other page, so I could go to that. It gives me a quick reference. Has some information printed off the bio for the head coach. Very fortunate with our softball team. Whenever I cover softball, I'm in pretty good shape because I went to school with the head coach, so I have some nice personal anecdotes and things I can share about her for doing those games. I think one more. Yeah, this is for volleyball. Volleyball, I did one game for volleyball where I was it. I called the whole game by myself. We didn't have a color commentator for our volleyball game. So I did a flip card for them with the same sort of thing. I knew who the starting lineups were going to be for both teams. I didn't put a depth chart in here because in volleyball they do such a rotation. There's no real room to do a depth chart. So you just put the starting 6, and then I would have a roster next to me. I scripted out my pregame before the game ever started. I like to write mine out because as I'm writing, I remember stuff better as I write versus if I type it. So I wrote that out. I took with me the conference standings. Took a reminder because we were broadcasting this, what I want to say every time we went to a break. Okay, so I had the conference standings, had where the 2 teams were. I had our team stats, I had their team stats, and I had this all laid out on the table in front of me. I had some terminology that I wanted to include, so I had some notes with that. What is a dump? Well, that's when the setter goes up and she looks like she's going to set it. She just actually dumps it on the other side, team's side. Wanted to know what a slide was. And I got this before the match ever started because some of the terms that our team uses are different from what another team uses. So like for instance, if it's a back set where the setter will come up and she'll set it behind her to the player coming behind, usually they'll set it in front. They call that a certain number. Well, I didn't want to give that number on the air because the other team's listening and they say it was a 4. And they hear me say, well, she goes with a 4 that time. Then every time they hear our team yell 4, 4, 4, they know it's gonna be back, so I didn't wanna give away that, okay? Because volleyball was there's so much dead time in volleyball, I also have releases of upcoming schedules, upcoming events for the Mules and Jennies. I think I had a couple of notes about conference player of the week and those types of things that I took with me that was already scripted out. So I had something to talk about in those dead times, because guys, you can't just the whole time talk about this game. People are watching it. They want to hear a little perspective. They want to hear a little bit about what's going on in the rest of the athletic program, okay? But are you getting a sense of how much prep I did for these games? And I'm not even a professional who does this for a living, okay? So in some ways I may be over-prepped because I don't do this regularly. There's a commentator for Washburn who has he doesn't do a flip card like I do, he just does it on paper. But he has every one for like 10 years, and what he'll do after a game is he'll put them together and he'll put Scotch tape over the top. And so that way, if he wants to go back and see how a team did from so many years ago, he can find it, can look at it. Thought that was great. It was a little over the top, but it works for him. Okay? The thing is, as you're doing these, you need to find a system that works for you. Doing a flip card is a very personal thing. It's got to be something that's going to work for you, okay? That you can find your information quickly, that you can broadcast it quickly, that you can get that information out there without any delay. So it's got to be something you're comfortable with. I do strongly recommend using something like a manila folder that's solid. It's not going to be torn up really easily, that you can write on both sides, that you can give yourself some depth, and that you can open up, because I can also store my notes in there for when I'm traveling. But I can also hold that pretty easily and see both teams at a glance. And with football, then I just flip it over, and now I have the other team's offense and defense. Okay?
Maybe you can bring a hard copy of that.
Well, here's the story. For your assignment, I want you to develop a flip card. The same sort of concept, okay? So I want you to assume you're going to do play-by-play or color for a game. You pick the two teams that are going to be competing. So it could be for an upcoming game if you want to, and you can do the research like you were going to call that game, or you could just pick two teams that you want to be competing. And whatever game that is, all right? Now I don't want the Cleveland Cavaliers playing football. I mean, I want them playing the sport they play, okay? But you can have the Dallas Cowboys playing the Arkansas Razorbacks, which would be kind of stupid, but whatever. All right? But I want to see what kind of cards you put together, what kind of prep work you do, what kind of information you include. All right? So I want you to do that. I also want you to script a 5-minute pregame. So the intro to the game. I said I've got an example on there I looked up before class. I didn't post one. I'll post one right after class. But I want you to script a 5-minute pregame. So that means you're going to use all the information you can to highlight the game. Like the advanced story that you wrote, same sort of thing. It's an advance that you're going to read for a broadcast. All right? So you're going to give me that, and then you're going to do the note cards. This is due Sunday the 26th by midnight. If you're here on campus and you want to bring it by my office, if you get it done this week and you want to bring it by my office, if I'm not there, put it in my mailbox. If I am, you just deliver it to me. Or you can do it like you did the feature map. You can just take a photo of it, what you've done, kind of write me some notes about what you included and why you included it, and then email that to me. Okay? Does that make sense? So, any two teams you want, any sport you want.
Can we do a design on Word?
Hmm?
Can we do like a design on Word?
A design on Word?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a personal thing. How it fits for how it works best for you. Okay. What I'll grade it on, number one is, again, this is kind of a pass-fail sort of assignment. Don't just slop something together and throw it in, because I'm going to send that back and say, no, do this over. But what kind of information you include, if you give some decent information, if you just have a roster on either side or the starting lineups and nothing else. Heights, weights, years in school if you're talking college, hometown is always helpful information. If their parent was a coach, I want to see that you've done some research. Okay? That's all. Last class. Thank you, it's been fun. Do me a favor, the course evaluations for the course are available on My Central. Please go and fill that out. Please be honest. If there were things you didn't like in the class, tell me. If there's things in my presentation you didn't like, tell me. If there's things that you'd like to see us doing in the future, I'd like to know what those ideas are. If you like the tours, great. Think we want to do more of them, include that, right? I want to build the class and make it better, so I can only do that